talk now about selling value and making sure that that value is wrapped into your marketing. Marketing is a component of that, but your efforts in the transaction, the agency brand, all those things go into a compelling message of value. So really for me, what is value? For me, value is, can you honestly look your client in the eye and say, we will make the market pay more for your property by going with us? And if that's the case, what I always like to do is, first of all, understand value from the client's perspective first. There's an old saying my father once taught me, and that is, if you think of pigs in a pen, and think of that's those little pink piglets in a pen, and think of pigs in a pen snorting mud. And when pigs got mud in their mouth, you can give them as many strawberries as you want. But if they've got mud in their mouth, they're not going to be tasting the strawberries. It's not too dissimilar to right now trying to get Bretling, trying to get Hugo Boss to try and open a store in Wagga Wagga. Sorry, Wagga Wagga agents, that brand would not work in the marketplace. Why? Because there's no consumer there for it. Trying to give them those strawberries, they wouldn't see the value in them. So leading into this, what we need to find is from their perspective, where do they see value? A wonderful question I always like to ask to tap into value is, do you think your property or do you think your premises is worth the same no matter who you list with? And you just pause and look. And typically what you do is you get an answer. And the answer would be, oh no, I think I'll get more if I go with the right person. Well, what I'm interested to know from your perspective, what does that person do to get the higher price? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to tap into value from their perspective first, rather than shooting from the hip and guessing what that is. Really through that needs analysis, particularly around the marketing component, you really want to tap into value. Things like, have you ever inquired on a property before? How did you find that experience? So really what I'm hearing is it wasn't that the marketing was at fault, the marketing worked, it was just the person on the other end of the phone or on the other end of the email inquiry that didn't handle the marketing lead that well, that was the reason why it didn't work or was the reason why it failed. So really it's important in qualifying the value, and for me often, the value for marketing is not just so much in the way the property's marketed, but it's how quickly and how effective the response of that lead's handled. And I'd quite frankly look the client in the eye and say, look, every time we market a property like this, of the marketing spend divided up over the number of inquiries on average we get, we know it costs you, Mr. or Mrs. Vendor or Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, $100, $200, $500 per inquiry. So therefore, when an email inquiry comes through, I have my team ready and raring to respond to that immediately. Now what we know even without mystery shopping is that generally the commercial industry responds to about 64% of leads. That's through Activate Growth, which is my own mystery shopping business that's gone out and mystery shopped the industry. So nearly a third of the inquiries out there aren't getting responded to at all. So just marketing is not enough. You really need to make sure that that agent is accountable and can actually demonstrate how they do it. It's as well with responding to those phone leads. Really how the phone lead's qualified, how that phone lead really handles that inquiry. One of the things that I often teach is when an inquiry comes in is not just where you saw the property advertised, but what was it in the marketing that grabbed your attention? And often the thing that grabs their attention is the thing that's solving their problem. So in order to get them to come and look at the property, what I do is I pitch the solution of this property back at their problem. So rather than entirely selling the property, what I do is I just sell a few things that I know they're going to respond well to. It's those sort of techniques that are really, really important. And again, if that person on the other end of the phone was in the market looking, I'd also on the phone ask them what else they've been seeing. And I'd ask them questions well and above the budget that they've inquired on. So if they inquired on a $25,000 lease, I might say, look, if we had something at $30,000 or $35,000, would that be something you want to look at? And when they say yes, you then go to 40 and they say no, we know that they're at 35. So when they're signing your lease up at 25 and they're trying to negotiate, I know they've got the money already. And that's not too dissimilar with for sale properties, it's exactly the same. So on that first inquiry, people often say to me, Dan, when does the negotiation start? It starts the moment I answer the inquiry. I need to find out what problem they're solving, what I'm actually going to pitch when they actually walk through the property and have a look at it. I want to know what their budget is. So 2 weeks down the line when their solicitor sends me an offer, I want to make sure I know exactly what their full buying potential is. And so quite frankly, if we're in a negotiation, I've got 3 or 4 different people all vying for the same thing, I know exactly how to set that negotiation up. Which leads me to negotiation, because if you don't know what everyone's buying capacity is at that point, and you're not an experienced negotiator, then you might go and sign the offers up in the wrong order or go to your client with the wrong negotiation strategy. And what we know about negotiating is that the person that we think is going to buy, that's going to pay the most, we should always push last. And what that does for us is it gives that person second and third guess at the pressure that is on the edge of their heels. If we were to sign that person up first and go to the little offers last, then we're losing the momentum in the negotiation. So all those things go into the value offering that you should be discussing. Once again, these are just not words. You need to be answering inquiries as fast as you possibly can in a tailored manner. You need to be qualifying the inquiries. If the people quite simply aren't ready to look at it, ask to follow them up 3 to 5 days later and see whether things have changed. And again, with your commission fees, it's really important to understand your value. And one of the key things is when you're talking value is that when it's seeming like you're a bit expensive, it's really important to quantify how expensive. So if you're adding your percentage you're charging plus the marketing and comparing it to a free offering, the really important thing is to actually discuss the amount of money that you're in discussion with. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, can I just qualify with the marketing and our commission structure and the other competitors' commission structure, can we just table that the difference we're talking about is $4,000? Is that right? Yes. So I guess what I want to find out from you first and foremost, and I like to equalise, if for whatever reason they did it and they charged what we charged, can I ask you a question? Would you actually go with us or them? And just look them in the eye. Now, if they don't say you, quite frankly, you're going to have to discount to win it. But they should say you at that point and ask them, why would you go with us? And so what you've then got to do is attach that $5,000 difference to the why. And you've got to get them to see value in that. Moving on for that, even if they're not seeing value in that, what you've got to do is you've got to think of what I call the range fee. So often even giving a range of what your fee or a structured fee structure gives you that opportunity. But even things like if it's a percentage, look, what if we keep charging what we're charging, but we put a range in? So let's just say, for argument's sake, and I know there's different commission structures all around Australia, but let's look at the range of 2.5% to 3% or 6% to 9%. What I want to do is put a range on the agreement, and then when we actually do the deal, you choose where you pay me within that range. And so what that does is that gives a really fair fee structure. But what you want to do is look them in the eye and say, if we deliver on a really good tenant or we deliver on a really good buyer at a high price, we'll be at the upper end of that range, won't we? And so what you do when you're actually negotiating, just before the last negotiation push, you go to the vendor, you go to the landlord and you say, if we get an extra X amount of dollars, am I at my higher end of the range? So what that means, if I can get you another 10, you pay me 2 and you'll get the 8. Does that sound fair? And 99% of the time, you'll get that higher end of the range. So to stay in the game, offer that range on your agency agreement or on your management agreements. What you also want to communicate to the client is all the different fee structures in the marketplace. So one of the approaches that I would encourage you to do is to do this. Say to the client, look, all agents in our marketplace know what each other charges. We know what they charge, they know what we charge. So the question is, if we're at 8% and they're at 5%, why do you think they only charge 5%? And you pause and you look them in the eye and you say, why wouldn't they just charge 6% or 7% and work a third less? Do you know why they don't? It's because if they did that, they wouldn't get any business. And so the only way to get your business is to distract you with a low fee structure. And so they distract you, and it's a hoodwinking tool the industry calls. So they hoodwink you into focusing on their low fee structure, which gets you to ignore the benefits of going with us. And let me just say the benefits of this. The difference in fee for each negotiation push is about 1/5 of a negotiation push. So if the difference in fee is 4,000, let's say your average negotiation push is 20,000, or if it's 1,000, we're talking leasing and you can get them up $5,000 on the lease per annum, what we're actually talking is a return on investment of 5 times that, or 10 to 15 times that difference in fee. That's just one negotiation push. So the question really is not just about how much can you get off it, but how much more can you get out of the marketplace, which is what you want to qualify your vendor on.